Hey everyone, welcome back. So we have a very cool next presentation for you. So we're going to hear from Dr. Samuel Dismond and Dr. Michael Penn, two doctors. Samuel is actually a practicing physician, and Michael is actually a longtime researcher and scientist. And they've come together for a very cool project called Terma.io. I'm going to read you a little blurb on it. So the goal of Terma.io is harnessing the cloud to improve conversation. Their platform analyzes dialogue in real time to signal critical emotional shifts in how we sound and what we hear. These signals contain profound insights that support timely and easy adjustments, making conversation more caring, effective, and engaging. And I had the great pleasure of actually spending a bit of time with Michael Penn before the meetup. We had a long conversation, and I left actually inspired by what they're doing and the vision that they're bringing forward. They have a deep understanding from the physiological side, from the biological side of how the human system works, and they're creating, based on that understanding, a software system that can really help us at a personal, social, interpersonal level. So really lucky to have them here and to hear what they have to say. So thank you. So here's Michael.
Thank you, Mikey. Before I say anything, can we take a few deep breaths? That was more for my benefit than yours. So I am really, really glad to be here today. And Tristan, thank you for a wonderful talk. I want to talk to you today about relationships. But before I do that, I want to ask you to drop down into your heart from your head. So whatever that means to you, drop from your head into your heart. And then I want to ask, just by a show of hands, how many people in the room think that technology can make the world better? Okay, thank you. How many of you are optimistic that it will? Yes. So I'm in the right place, I think. So in the interest of full transparency, I am not a technology person. I am a lover of technology, and I believe that technology can make the world better. This is the first time that I have spoken about Terma.io to a group this size, and I have purposefully and consciously chosen not to have slides, and I want to create a picture for you of a living room. So imagine this is your living room, and you're sitting on a warm and cozy couch. There's a fire going, and we're having a conversation about how we believe the world can be made better by technology. Does that sound like a plan? All right. So, in order to make this world better, we want to look at our relationships. How many of you have had wonderful relationships? Does anyone want to just yell out a dimension of that relationship that's wonderful? Trust. Love. Support. How do those things manifest? Cuddling? Yep.
Picking up when you call.
How do relationships develop? Sorry.
Picking up when you call.
Picking up when you call. That's a good sign too.
Conversation.
Conversation. Listening. Responsiveness? Yes. Yes and yes. Truthful communication? Playing. Wow, vulnerability. You guys could probably do the talk for me. I should sit down. I want to pick up on the conversation piece. One of the ways, major ways that relationships advance is through conversation. Now the question is, how available are we to all of the information that's in a conversation? How many of you have had a conversation where you were accused of not listening to what the other person had to say? How many of you have had the experience of being in a conversation and you're really into it, but you're just trying to make your point, and when it's time to make your point, you've lost the context because you've been so focused on making your point that you haven't been fully present in the moment in the conversation. So, Terma.io, we want to improve culture. And we believe that culture is defined by the quality of our relationships. And the approach that we take is by analyzing human conversation. So, before I get into describing a little bit about our approach, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what makes us human. And so I'll just throw that out to the audience. What makes us human? Empathy. Great answer. Breath. Yeah, we share breath. Compassion. Emotions. DNA. Absolutely. Culture. Abstract thought. Joy. Wonderful, wonderful answers. Community. Speech. Fear.
Ability to make choices.
And the ability to make choices. All of these. So first, let's just appreciate the complexity of what makes us human. We certainly share a common biology, a common physiology. Someone mentioned emotions. There's really, really interesting work that is connecting our biology with our emotions. And so you could imagine that part of what makes us human is our shared biology. And that biology creates inner experiences that we have and experience. And some of them we become aware of. And once we become aware of them, some of them actually seek emergence. They seek expression. And they get encoded actually into our language, our speech, our words. So our system, the Terma is Tibetan for hidden treasure. So what the Terma system does is it reveals the unconscious information, sometimes it's conscious, that's embedded within our speech. Now, the question I have for you is, how many of you have had a conversation that just went south? Come on now. So one of the things that we'd like to change or impact is the success rate of a conversation. Now, we don't want to reduce it just to success or failure, but imagine if you were able to consult with, I think you made the reference to the Matrix. Imagine if you could consult with an oracle in the midst of a conversation that would give you insight or a heads up about a behavior that you were exhibiting that didn't serve the conversation, or perhaps an early warning sign that the conversation was approaching a road hazard, and gave you the ability to anticipate and perhaps make a pivot. This is the vision of what we are hoping to achieve. So how do we do this? We have mapped universal human needs that we all share, that help us see how we are more alike than we are different. And that knowledge helps us connect better. The second thing that we do is we measure those needs in real time. We can also analyze the conversation at a number of different levels, both at the individual level but also at the transpersonal level. So our intention is to transmit or create oracles of human insight, either serving as an oracle or inspiring or empowering the individual to be an oracle, to strengthen human connection. That is terma.io. I look forward to engaging you in conversation. I'm going to invite Samuel up to the stage. He is the founder of the company and the person who wrote how many lines of code?
Too many.
Many lines of code. But I really appreciate your attention, and we look forward to answering your questions and hearing your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was awesome. So we're going to open up the floor to questions. Does anyone have anything they'd like to throw out? Yeah, awesome.
So I absolutely see the value in having the awareness that a conversation is going south and that we're like participating in a way that doesn't serve our shared interests. And I've seen people do that, and I've tried my best to do that for myself and my friends and in groups and everything. So there's like immense value in if this could be done for us. But then I think about like human beings being in a conversation and a third-party technology like informing them that they're like going south in their conversation and they're not serving their best interests, and that feeling like an invasion or a violation on something very intimate and personal. And when I think about the realms of where people feel really strongly that these are like where they want to be the ones who are directing their experiences, I wonder if this is a realm that we're ready as humans right now to have technological collaboration with. And I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll start by saying I think success here really is creating an experience that is as unintrusive as possible. So you could imagine a scenario where a device, whatever it might be, so two people would agree to use a system to support the conversation. Depending on choice for the people involved in the conversation, you could opt not to have real-time notification. You could actually have the information stored and look at it later, and perhaps look at it together as a shared experience or individually and come together. So that's, the idea would be that it would be a conscious choice, but certainly not something that would be mandatory.
And I think our use of, our unself-conscious use of technology has already accepted ephemeral memory, that I can commit something electronically and be assured that it'll disappear at a set amount of time. Of course, this is something that would be built in with collaboration, but there would be some window of time you could specify beforehand. 30 minutes, and then it's gone, unretrievable. So privacy is maintained. All the same kind of collaborative efforts that went into establishing things like e-trust for privacy. We're not gonna, you are not the product, your conversation is not the product. All that would be maintained, certainly.
That's less my concern. When I think about that kind of privacy, that's more like an invasion of other human beings. Like, are people listening to my conversation, as opposed to just even making a conscious choice to involve the technology kind of facilitator almost. It's like in the role of facilitator. I thought of the example of a friend of mine was having difficulty with their housemate. They weren't seeing eye to eye, so they hired a facilitator to come and like sit with them and help them understand each other. And this is something that I do for my friends too. I was just thinking about, well, what if it weren't a facilitator in that role? What if it were Terma doing that for them? And just wondering if people would feel comfortable making the choice to have the person facilitating them be a technological agent as opposed to a human one. And
Good question. Can we get a show of hands? So, no pressure.
Can you rephrase the question just as like a clear?
So the question, as I understood it, is if you are having a conversation, and I guess we haven't defined what kind of conversation, but who would be open to having a technology serve as a facilitator or a provider of insight rather than a human? So for some, is that a more preferable, or at least another option? So just show of hands so we can kind of see. Okay, so about maybe 20, 25%, maybe 30. Okay.
I like the machine option because it takes away. I kind of like the machine option because it takes away bias. You're like, oh, this is as impartial as it gets. It's a machine.
So that's part of the beauty, I think, which is the reproducibility, the robustness,
And you call a machine a jerk, it'll keep on doing its work. It won't care.
It won't take it personal. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
So just to that point, I have a question on sort of obviously gestures and speech being only a fraction of what's actually communicated. A machine can't necessarily pick that up. I mean, the way that you're phrasing kind of Terma. So that's a question that I wonder if you've thought about how to deal with that. The second question being, there's a lot of regional differences in speech, right? There's a lot of even from dialect to dialect. There's differences. There's just so complex for many, many reasons. And you look at places like India or even America, you look at how people treat each other with speech. In New York, people are more sarcastic. In California, San Francisco, people are a little bit more open, or whatever you want to call it. There are different adjectives to label it. So how have you thought about that? And perhaps how much have you incorporated that into your design?
Okay, two great questions. So the first is the other information that can be communicated when you're having a conversation. So gestures, facial expression, those kinds of things. So there's certainly technologies that exist that analyze and measure that. I think we like to think that our approach is a bit more tractable and reproducible in terms of it can be converted to text, which can be specifically analyzed, and it certainly is conceivable that in the future those technologies could be combined, right, to provide a more comprehensive picture. And then in terms of your question, I'm going to really let you answer this part. The beauty of these universal needs that we've defined is that they're human. They're not cultural. Now, there may be different distributions or different, right, within cultures, but they are universal. They're driven from biology, from inner experiences. So there's universality. Now, in terms of how our system was built, it was hand-coded by this guy. So certainly to enable the product in other languages, there would have to be a process by which it got hand-coded, but I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah. So the system is built to provide awareness. There's no normative, there's no standard. For example, it's a little trite, but a man is professing love to the other person, love for the other person in the conversation. Terma would pick up the subtle differences just by merely counting the words, that each word by itself unequivocally is more about control than intimacy, and just reflects that. It's like, dude, 70% of the words you used are about control, but your headline is intimacy. Is this really what you want to happen in your conversation? And that's how the beginning of going south is, with the intention set ahead of time. I already have a pretty decent measure of the distribution of human needs given what United States speech patterns. It's heavy on ego and really heavy on the brain. Those are the number 1 and 2. That's the baseline. Okay, so given the baseline, if there are more ego words starting to appear in the conversation, control, boundaries, and this is ostensibly about being vulnerable, that's the warning sign. Just a subtle signal, and again, that's the result of collaboration and excellent design. But in terms of the mechanics of it, it's not normative. It's just holding up, hey, this is happening.
No, we got the microphone. We're recording. For the people at home.
Oh, static.
Just a
It's a really interesting idea. I guess I had kind of like, similar concerns about the context of the conversation, which kind of leads me to, you gave a really interesting abstract presentation, but what are the specific applications that you're looking at? Because I can see how this would be very useful potentially in a business meeting where there's a lot of exposition, and how much ground did we cover? Did we actually come together? And you're kind of trying to be operational. But in those love affair sort of situations, I find it, I haven't been, it's the burden of proof. Give me the burden of proof, because I'm not sure that, if I go back to acting school or something like that, not that I went to become an actor, but I did take a theater class once. The exercise was you had to say "I'm here" 20 different ways, and when you said "I'm here," you said it to say "I'm here" or "I'm here." How does your system sort of find the difference?
So the quick answer to that question is we don't measure intonation or emphasis, so it wouldn't pick up that difference. And in terms of use cases, and we'd really love your feedback here. So we think the best, at least initial application, are those conversations where there's a lot of emotional investment. Samuel likes the phrase emotional skin in the game. So relationships certainly fulfill that category. You could also imagine, intimate, loving relationships. You could also imagine, are any parents in the room? All right, so, I don't have teenagers yet, but it scares me to death. And so you could imagine a scenario where a parent is attempting to communicate more effectively with their teen. Absolutely, in the enterprise setting, there are lots of work environments where information about relationship becomes important, whether it's a reporting relationship, whether it's a team relationship dynamic. I sort of have dreams of CEOs having dashboards of how all their teams are performing, and they use insight created by the terma in terms of effectiveness, right? So one of the ways that we describe what terma can do is it helps align the impact of your words with your intent, because we're not always conscious of that. And so if we were, you could imagine many much improved outcomes.
I'm for maybe 2 more questions at the most.
Is your system, I mean, you frame it as a conversation mirror, and then now you're talking more about like matching what you're actually saying to the intent. Is there like some form of bidirectionality to it, or it's really more like, okay, for example, an application would be like, I mean, the compassion checker that could be so as a writing aid or something like that. But is it meant to provide? I mean, is there some, and if it does, I'm interested in hearing what's the dialectic aspect of the system.
So the intent, the option to specify intent from a multiple choice, which includes the 7 motivators we have mapped, I have mapped. That's the first level of expressing intent. And that's huge to begin with. Just in the little experiments I've done, certainly not any huge, statistically significant. We did some market research work initially, and in all transparency, I had this insight. It's kind of like Mainman and the laser. You know, it's like, oh, look at this bright light. What do we do with it? Who would have thunk 60 years later it's powering all of internet traffic? Everybody's trying to burn things with this bright light. So I do have a significant amount of data when people just specify an intent with regard to a product. This system can predict just from other people's conversation based on, what's the guy's name? The Net Promoter Score. I can't remember the guy from HBR. I think everybody knows it. What is it? Promoters, passives, and detractors. It can pick out, just from conversation with 93% precision, people who match up with this product just by that simple pull down. You know, so like if I'm with this product, it's about simplicity. Then just from hoovering up conversation in the context of the product, I can match people like that. So it works in that setting. As far as conversation, that's just collaborative design. I love collaborative design. So our big ask is for input from people to help us shape this, the best first use case, interpersonal, emotional, skin in the game conversations, and then what's the right way, considering all the things Tristan talked about, especially to have people have this experience of time well spent in their conversation by matching, okay, this is the headline, what are the words I'm using? Are they matching the headline going into this conversation? So it's pretty simple on the first level.
Well, okay, this is the last short question.
So I'm thinking about the kind of person who would not like this product, and they're bullies, basically people who have power. And people in power generally are the ones who actually make decisions regarding adoption of products like this. So were you guys thinking about using this in the corporate setting or personal setting? I'm just wondering what what the actual
to be determined, but I think your point is well taken, and part of the reason we're here is because we have faith that the person who isn't the way that you describe will show up to support advancing the technology, and we're willing to wait. Yeah.
And it sounds like you are both eager and excited about input and getting people's perspective. What's the best way for people to be in touch with you if they want to learn more?
michael.penn@terma.io.
michael.penn@terma.io. Thank you very, 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 very much.
Thanks.